Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be fitting a full Supersprint exhaust including manifolds and sports cats to our Z8. As you can see, we have the whole exhaust laid out in front of us, so let's take a closer look. At the front of the exhaust, we have the exhaust manifold, and this is where the magic happens in terms of power. Supersprint are very well renowned for making very high quality headers that make a big difference on cars. Luckily for us, the S62 engine that's in this car and E39 M5 essentially came with the 540i manifold, so it was very restrictive. So these do release a lot of power. As you can see, they're very well made. The merge collector is done correctly, and there are 4-into-1 configuration. We have used these many times on E39 M5s, and also if you watched our previous video on our customer Z8, it essentially had the same setup. After the manifolds, we have the HJS sports cats. The reason I'm going for sports cats rather than decatting completely is that the car remains very legal and it will still dampen down the sound a little bit. I want a more sophisticated sound rather than just loud, and these will help us achieve that. On the back box, we have a set of resonators each side, and then the back boxes. They do two different versions of the tailpipe. One is more like the stock, so it's just straight cut round. These ones will follow the lines of the bumper, and I think they will look a bit smarter than the other version. But what I'm excited about is to see what this sounds like. So let's get this on the car, we'll run it up on the dyno, see what power it makes, tune it, and more importantly, release that V8 sound. Now we have the stock exhaust and manifold off the Z8, we can take a closer look against the comparison with the Supersprint manifolds, which I have over here. As you can see, these are not the best design. They are straight off a 540i, and they're even restrictive on that car. So you can imagine on a car producing 100 horsepower how restrictive they will be. Usually M cars would have their own very nicely designed manifolds like the E36 M3 and the E46 M3, but for some reason they skipped it on the S62 engine, which is in the Z8 and the E39 M5. You can see on this, especially here, that 90-degree bend it has to navigate. It's not the best, and if you compare it against a Supersprint, the primaries are a lot longer, and that's where majority of the power comes from, and it has smooth transitions throughout. Down here I have the 4-into-1 merge collector, and that does an excellent job of scavenging the exhaust gases and helps aid the flow and therefore the power. You can see the welding is very nice, and this was specifically made for the Z8. So we have dynoed the car and it made 393 horsepower in stock form. We're going to fit the manifolds and the exhaust system, not expecting power from the exhaust system from my experience. We'll dyno the car again, show you what power it's making in its entirety, then we'll tune the car just to make sure it's running properly and also get a little bit more power out of it. With the exhaust fitted, let's take a closer look. As you saw from the installation, it's quite an involved job to fit the manifolds, but no problem for our technicians because it's very similar to an E39 M5. In fact, they told me it's a bit easier than an E39 M5. The tailpipes are a big change from the standard ones. There was a couple of weak things about the design of this car. I absolutely love it, but the wheels didn't make sense to me initially. They don't suit the nature of the car. They're too small and the design is too soft, so that's why we changed them. The exhaust tailpipes in standard form actually fake, so they're not part of the exhaust, and they just look like they were added on in the last moment. If you look at the rest of the car, the design details are absolutely stunning and very, very detailed, but the tailpipes just didn't work. The Supersprint ones essentially fill out the whole gap. They're cut to flow with the shape of the bumper, and I think they really look good. They do change the look of the car completely from the rear for the better. But the most important thing is, how does it sound? Let's take it out on the road and find out. As expected, it sounds really good. So it's got the low V8 rumbly noise at the bottom end of the RPM range. You go up and it just starts getting more musical, more acoustic. So it's got a lot of personality. When you fit a different exhaust to a car, sometimes you get like a flat monotone noise, but not this. It certainly has two distinct personalities. You get that nice rumble, the V8 distinctive sound at the low end. You can just hear that off the throttle as well. It's kind of oscillates when you let off the accelerator, which gives it even more personality. The best way I can describe it is almost exotic, and I think the sound does now match the looks of the car, because the car does look absolutely amazing, but the sound was just too muted in the factory. And when you're driving around normally, there's no drone, so you could still do long journeys in this car, which is designed to do. It's like long range GT cruiser. And you can certainly feel the extra torque from the headers, which is what I'd expect. The ECU and the engine are essentially the same as E39 M5, and we've been tuning those cars for years. Nobody buys a Z8 to drive it with the hood up, so let's drop the hood and see what it sounds like. I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to hear me, but we'll give it a go. Oh, immediately just on idle I can hear a huge difference because I have nothing muffling the sound. So let's see what it's like. Wow, this is what this car is about. Open top motoring, glorious countryside. Oh, and that noise, wow, that is a huge difference. And I know I said we haven't done this upgrade for the power, but you can certainly feel the torque low down and also more urgency at the top end. And we have also applied our stage 2 tune to this car. Just to optimize the engine for the headers and the sports cats. But my god, that noise, oh, it's so good. It's almost NASCAR low down, that snarly sound, and then as you hit about 5,000 RPM, pitch just changes and it gets higher pitched and exotic. Oh, that's glorious, absolutely glorious. And most of the time this car is being pulled around, so you drive it slowly, just enjoy the countryside, and you've got a beautiful soundtrack even at low speeds. This upgrade does also add a bit of power, which I can feel from driving the car. Let's get it on the dyno, see what it does stock, see what it does with the full exhaust system including the manifolds, and then what it does after we apply our ECU tune. We've had the Z8 on the dyno a few times now, initially to get the baseline figures, then again to get the figures with the headers, exhaust, and then again for the tuning. So let's start right at the beginning. The car made a very healthy 393 horsepower and 363 foot-pound of torque, and that's what I'd expect from a healthy S62. We see anywhere between 380 and 400, so that's bang on in the middle. With the Supersprint headers, sports cats, and exhaust, it made a 421 horsepower and 377 foot-pound of torque, but you can see the torque gain throughout the whole rev range. So it's made anywhere between sort of 10, 15 and 20 foot-pound of torque just from the exhaust changes, and it's pulling a lot stronger at the top end. And then with the tune on top of that, we've made 443 horsepower and 387 foot-pound of torque, and you can see that torque gain throughout the whole rev range again, around 15 foot-pound of torque, and you can see the horsepower exponentially getting higher, and at the end it's making the peak difference. The point of this upgrade for us wasn't to get more power out of the car, but a byproduct you can see of doing the manifolds, the exhaust, having a beautiful sound and tuning the ECU is 50 horsepower over stock and around 25 foot-pound of torque, making more than that throughout the rev range. So at the end here it's nearly 50 foot-pounds of torque. So that is an incredible upgrade for a normally aspirated car. This car is not about speed for us. We really wanted to release the V8 noise, but once we've done the headers, we may as well optimize the tune. So overall, I'm really happy with that. Not only does the car sound fantastic, it now has very usable torque and power throughout the whole rev range. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please remember to smash that like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. If you want to join the conversation, please drop a comment below and we'll try our best to respond to you. If you want to watch more of this project, you can do so over here. If you want to watch what YouTube thinks you might like from our other content, you can do so over here.